Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to create the checkerboard pattern. And I'm going to start with the checkerboard pattern because I think that this is kind of one of the easier patterns for you to create. So since I'm still working in the pencil, I'm actually going to put the pencil down. And I'm going to decide what other material I'm going to want to use, because in this checkerboard pattern, I used pencil and I also used a marker. So I'm going to decide now that I'm going to use the Sharpie marker. Since I'm working a little bit larger, I think the Sharpie marker will be fine. So I'm going to get started by planning out the checkerboard pattern. I'm going to decide which one of these 4 sections I want to put the checkerboard pattern in. I'm going to put the checkerboard pattern in this tile right here. So to get started, we're going to just draw a grid by drawing parallel lines. And I'm just doing this by eye. I'm not using a ruler. They might be curved a little bit, and that's okay. Might be a little bit wiggly, and that's all right. And then I'm going to draw intersecting lines. I'm going to draw perpendicular intersecting lines. So these lines are going parallel in the opposite direction. Some of them might be a little bit closer or further apart. All right, so we've planned out the base of our checkerboard, and now what we need to do is use the pencil to mark the ones that we are going to shade and which ones we are going to fill in with the marker. So if you notice, when we look at this Zentangle tile, the checkerboard is filled with shaded squares and black squares. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the pencil, and we're going to use the pencil to show which ones we want to color with marker first. So I'm going to choose one to color in, and then I'm going to look at the 4 corners, and I'm going to pick the ones in the corner. So I'm not trying to fill them in completely because these are the ones that I'm going to color in with the marker first. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to look at the corners and color the ones that are touching in the corner. And I'm going to do this for the whole part of this Zentangle. I'm going to do it for this whole section of the string. So I'm just going to keep going and mark in with the pencil, just gently. Oh, that's not the right one. And that's why we're doing this part in pencil. So I'm just looking at the corner and filling in, and if you notice, there are these diagonal lines that are forming. Okay, now that I've shaded those in with the pencil, just really nice and gently, I'm going to switch over to my Sharpie marker. And if you notice, my Sharpie marker tip, I haven't jammed the tip. I've actually drawn with this one really lightly, so it's still quite pointed. If your hand is getting tired while you're doing this, you're pressing too hard. This should be a peaceful, relaxing activity. You should be able to not feel a cramp in your hand. It should be relaxing. This should be an enjoyable activity. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start by tracing the squares that I've shaded in. And then I'm going to just gently fill in. And I might need to turn my tile while I'm working. I might need to turn my paper. I'm using the Sharpie marker very gently because I don't want to jam in that point. I want to be able to keep my marker well cared for. I want to show my Sharpie marker some love. I don't want to mush the tip. because then it's going to lose its point. So I'm going to just keep working around. And if it helps to trace over the lines again first, you could do that also. But we worked in pencil first, so that way if there wasn't a mistake that we made, we could go back and erase it. I actually like the way that the marker sounds as it's filling in on the paper. It's kind of like a soft scratching sound. So one thing about Zentangle is that there are a lot of variations on each pattern. So even though I'm using this black Sharpie marker, you might want to use a colored marker, or you might want to use a different pattern inside of the squares for the checkerboard pattern. So as you're working, if there's something that you want to do to make this pattern a little bit more special or unique to yourself, take a risk. Do it. What's the worst that happens? Maybe you decide, I don't like that. You can just color over it with black. Think about how you could make this project something that you're really proud of to share. Also, one thing that I do is I hold the marker like this sometimes, and I'm more easily able to just move my hand in this pattern going up and down. So if your hand is getting really tired doing this tripod grip, maybe you want to change up your grip and try something a little bit different so that it's more comfortable for your hand. But I am still not jamming the marker into the paper. Letting the marker do its job. Some of the lines that I'm tracing might be a little bit more wavy than others, and that's okay. I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm just trying to enjoy taking this time to work on something, to use my creative energies. Maybe I want to decide while I'm working how I could change up my pattern. I don't know, you could add a different detail, a square and a line and a line and a line. I don't like that though. I'm gonna just color over it. I took a chance. I tried something different. I don't like the way that that looks. Also, another tip when you're using the Sharpie marker to color, if you can hold it on more of an angle to the side, it's better for the tip of the marker. So if you notice, I've colored all of that in and the tip is still not been jammed. Most of that is because I'm applying the pressure on the side, on the wide angle of the marker. I'm almost done, just a couple squares left to fill in. All right, we're almost done. So I've made the checkerboard pattern with just the black marker, and now I can go back to my pencil and I could decide if I want to shade with pencil or if I want to go in with some of these colored markers to add some details. So in these white spaces, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna just shade around the edge first. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a variation and I'm gonna show you a technique that we can do to make this look like it's a little bit three-dimensional. So this string here, I'm just gonna shade using my mechanical pencil. I'm not filling in the whole shape. I am just making like its aura going around the outline of the string. So what I want to do is create a shadowing effect while I'm working. So maybe this one will get all filled in, but let's keep turning the paper. Okay, so now I've got this edge all shaded in. I'm gonna either use my finger, or if you have a tissue, you could use a tissue, and I'm just gonna use my finger to blend it out. And sometimes you feel like your finger really isn't doing the blending, because really what's helping blend with your finger is the oils that are naturally occurring on your skin. So sometimes if you need to help your fingers get ready to blend, you might rub them together, or you might do a little soft breathing on them. So If you feel like you're using your finger to try and blend and it's not working, that might be something you want to try. All right, so now I've shaded around and I have this checkerboard pattern. I'm actually gonna try something a little bit different. I wanna add some different detail inside some of these squares. So I'm going to work with pencil because if I don't like it, I can always erase it. And while I was working, I was drawing a square. I tried that before with just the black one. But what I think I'm gonna do is, I don't think I used this on any of these tiles that I have here, is just add a shape like this. 2 lines. Kind of like a letter L. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decide, do I want to do this design in pencil or do I want to use a marker? I actually think I'm gonna just add this in with pencil, so I might need to roll the tip up just a little bit. So instead of shading in the entire squares like I did in some of these other Zentangles that I've already made, I'm creating a variation on the checkerboard pattern. So the variation that I've added is inside of the white squares, the squares that I did not color in with marker, I am just shading, pressing a little bit more with pressure with the pencil. I just want to try to add a little bit of depth, make my checkerboard pattern a little bit unique. Maybe you don't want to do a pattern inside, maybe you want to just shade with pencil and blend with your finger. You decide, this is your Zentangle, this is something that you're working on. Yours doesn't need to look exactly like mine. I'm looking for you to be experimenting with a Zentangle and trying the different patterns, and I would love to see something that you tried to make this pattern, the checkerboard pattern, unique to you. Anybody can do a Zentangle. A Zentangle should not take all day. The Zentangle should be something that you work on in one sitting. It should not be something that takes you weeks, months, or years to complete. This pattern in the Zentangle only took us a few minutes. So this is my variation on the checkerboard pattern. And as I'm turning my paper around, I'm kind of thinking that it could still use a little bit more detail. So I'm actually going to pick up a pen and I'm gonna test out my idea on the back actually. So if you notice in some of my Zentangle designs that I've made before, I used the stippling pattern to add some detail. So what I think I'm gonna try doing is inside, I think I might try and add some stippling. So inside some of the squares, I might just be doing a few dots. So I think I'm gonna try and add some of these dots inside this little square shape. So I'm gonna just add 4 dots. Or try to add some dots. Maybe some will only have 1. Some of the shapes that I drew were a little smaller. Some of the shapes had a little bit more room. So depending on how detailed you want to be, you could keep adding more details to just your checkerboard pattern. I want to try and make sure each one of these at least has one dot. All right, I'm happy with that. Oh, I missed over here. There we go. So this is a variation on the checkerboard Zentangle pattern. In the next video, I'm going to show you another pattern for the next part of our Zentangle.